SMS Weissenburg was one of the first ocean-going battleships of the Imperial German Navy. She was the third pre-dreadnought of the Brandenburg-class, along with her sister ships Brandenburg, Wörth, and Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm. She was laid down in 1890 in the AG Vulcan dockyard in Stettin, launched in 1891, and completed in 1894. The Brandenburg-class battleships were unique for their era in that they carried 6 large-caliber guns in 3 twin turrets, as opposed to 4 guns in 2 turrets, as was the standard in other navies. The British Royal Navy derisively referred to the ships as whalers. Weissenburg saw limited active duty during her service career with the German fleet. She, along with her 3 sisters, saw one major overseas deployment to China in 1901. During the Boxer Rebellion, the ship underwent a major modernization in 1902 to 1904. In 1910, Weissenburg was sold to the Ottoman Empire and renamed Turgut Reis, after the famous 16th-century Turkish admiral Turgut Reis. The ship saw heavy service during the Balkan Wars, primarily providing artillery support to Ottoman ground forces and taking part in 2 naval engagements with the Greek Navy in December 1912 and January 1913. She was largely inactive during World War I, due in part to her slow speed. In 1924, Turgut Reis was used as a school ship before eventually being scrapped in the mid-1950s. Design: Weissenburg was 115.7 meters long overall, had a beam of 19.5 meters which was increased to 19.74 meters with the addition of torpedo nets, and had a draft of 7.6 meters forward and 7.9 meters aft. The ship displaced 10,013 t at its designed weight, and up to 10,670 t at full combat load. She was equipped with 2 sets of 3-cylinder triple-expansion steam engines that provided 10,228 metric horsepower and a top speed of 16.9 knots. Steam was provided by 12 coal-fired, transverse cylindrical water tube boilers. Weissenburg had a cruising range of 4,300 nautical miles at 10 knots. Her crew numbered 38 officers and 530 enlisted men. The ship was unusual for its time in that it possessed a broadside of 6 heavy guns in 3 twin-gun turrets, rather than the 4 guns typical of contemporary battleships. The forward and after turrets carried 28 cm SKL, 40 guns, while the amidships turret mounted a pair of 28 cm with shorter L-35 barrels. Her secondary armament consisted of 8 10.5 cm SKL, 35 quick-firing guns mounted in casemates and 8 8.8 cm SKL, 30 quick-firing guns, also casemate-mounted. Weissenburg's armament system was rounded out with 6 45 cm torpedo tubes, all in above-water swivel mounts. Although the main battery was heavier than other capital ships of the period, the secondary armament was considered weak in comparison to other battleships. Weissenburg was protected with nickel-steel crub armor, a new type of stronger steel. Her main belt armor was 400 mm thick in the central section that protected the ammunition magazines and machinery spaces. The deck was 60 mm thick. The main battery barbettes were protected with 300 mm thick armor. Service history: Weissenburg was the third of 4 ships of the Brandenburg class. She was ordered as battleship C, and was laid down at the AG Vulcan shipyard in Stettin in 1890 under construction number 199. She was the 3rd ship of the class to be launched, which she was on the 30th of June 1891. She was commissioned into the German fleet on 29 April 1894, the same day as her sister Brandenburg. Upon her commissioning, Weissenburg was assigned to the I Division of the I Battle Squadron alongside her three sisters. The I Division was accompanied by the four older Saxon-class armoured frigates in the II Division, though by the time the four Brandenburgs returned from China by 1901–2, the Saxons were replaced by the new Kaiser Friedrich III-class battleships. Boxer Rebellion. The first major operation in which Weissenburg took part occurred in 1900, when the I Division was deployed to China to assist in the suppression of the Boxer Rebellion. The expeditionary force consisted of the 4 Brandenburgs, 6 cruisers, 10 supply ships, 3 torpedo boats, and 6 regiments of Marines, under the command of Marshal Alfred von Waldersee. Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz opposed the plan, which he saw as unnecessary and costly. Although the naval force arrived in China after the siege of Peking had already been lifted, the task force suppressed local uprisings around Kiaochao. In the end, the operation cost the German government more than 100 million marks. Service with the Ottoman Navy. In 1902, following the return from China, Weissenburg entered the Kaiserliche Wörth shipyard in Wilhelmshaven for a significant reconstruction. After she emerged from her refit in 1904, the ship rejoined the active fleet. However, she and her sisters were rapidly made obsolete by the launch of HMS Dreadnought in 1906. As a result, the service careers with the German Navy were limited. On 12 September 1910, Weissenburg and Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm, the more advanced ships of the class, were sold to the Ottoman Empire and renamed Turgot Race and Barbarous Hayreddin, respectively. A year later, in September 1911, when Italy declared war on the Ottoman Empire, Turgot Race, along with Barbarous Hayreddin and the obsolete Central Battery ironclad Mesudi, had been on a summer training cruise since July, and so were prepared for the conflict. Despite this, the ships spent the war in harbor. Balkan Wars. The Balkan League declared war on the Ottoman Empire in October 1912. In the First Balkan War, Turgot Race, as with most ships of the Ottoman fleet, were in a state of disrepair. During the war, Turgot Race conducted gunnery training along with the other capital ships of the Ottoman Navy, escorted troop convoys, bombarded coastal installations. On 17 November 1912, Turgot Race supported the Ottoman Third Corps by bombarding the attacking Bulgarian forces. The ship was aided by artillery observers ashore. The battleship's gunnery was largely ineffective, though it provided a morale boost for the besieged Ottoman army dug in at Katalkar. By 1700, the Bulgarian infantry had largely been forced back to the starting positions, in part due to the psychological effect of the battleship's bombardment. Late in 1912, the Ottoman fleet attacked the Greek navy in an attempt to disrupt the naval blockade surrounding the Dardanelles. 2 engagements took place: the naval battle of Ely on 16 December 1912, followed by the naval battle of Lemnos on 18 January 1913. The first action was supported by Ottoman coastal batteries. Both Greek and Ottoman forces suffered minor damage during the engagement, but the Ottomans were unable to break through the Greek fleet and retired back into the Dardanelles. The Ottoman fleet, which included Turgot Race, her sister Barbarous Hayreddin, the flagship of the fleet, 2 outdated ironclad battleships, 9 destroyers and 6 torpedo boats, sortied from the Dardanelles at 9:30. The smaller ships remained at the mouth of the straits while the battleships sailed north. While remaining near to the coast, the Greek flotilla, which included the armored cruiser Georgios Avarov and 3 Hydra-class battleships, had been sailing from the island of Imbros to the patrol line outside the straits. When the Ottomans were sighted, the Greeks altered course to the northeast, in order to block the advance of their opponents. The Ottoman ships opened fire first at 9:50, from a range of about 15,000 yards. The Greeks returned fire 10 minutes later, by which time the range had decreased significantly to 8,500 yards. At 10:04, the Ottoman ships completed a 16-point turn, which reversed their course, and steamed for the safety of the straits in a disorganized withdrawal. Within an hour, the routed Ottoman ships had withdrawn into the Dardanelles. The naval battle of Lemnos resulted from an Ottoman plan to lure the faster Georgios Avarov away from the Dardanelles. The protected cruiser Hamidiya evaded the Greek blockade and broke out into the Aegean Sea. The assumption was that the Greeks would dispatch Georgios Avarov to hunt down Hamidiya. Despite the threat to Greek lines of communication posed by the cruiser, the Greek commander refused to detach Georgios Avarov from its position. However, presuming that the plan had worked, Turgut Reis, Barbaros Hayreddin, and other units of the Ottoman fleet departed the Dardanelles on the morning of the 18th of January, and sailed towards the island of Lemnos. Georgios Avarov appeared approximately 12 miles from Lemnos when the powerful Greek ship was spotted. The Ottomans turned to retreat. Georgios Avarov's superior speed allowed the ship to close the distance between her and the fleeing Ottoman ships. A long-range artillery duel that lasted for 2 hours began at around 11:25. Towards the end of the engagement, Georgios Avarov closed to within 5,000 yards and scored several hits on the fleeing Ottoman ships. Between Turgut Reis and Barbaros Hayreddin, the ships fired some 800 rounds, mostly of the main battery 28 cm guns, but without success. During the battle, barbets on both Turgut Reis and her sister were disabled by gunfire, and both ships caught fire. On the 8th of February 1913, the Ottoman Navy supported an amphibious assault at Sarkoy. Turgut Reis and Barbaros Hayreddin, along with 2 small cruisers, provided artillery support to the right flank of the invading force. Once it went ashore, the ships were positioned about a kilometer offshore. Turgut Reis was the second ship in the line, behind her sister Barbaros Hayreddin. The Bulgarian army resisted fiercely, which ultimately forced the Ottoman army to retreat, though the withdrawal was successful in large part due to the gunfire support from Turgut Reis and the rest of the fleet. During the battle, Turgut Reis fired 225 rounds from her 10.5 cm guns and 202 shells from her 8.8 cm guns. In March 1913, the ship returned to the Black Sea to resume support of the Katalkar garrison, which was under renewed attacks by the Bulgarian army. On the 26th of March, the barrage of 28 and 10.5 cm shells fired by Turgut Reis and Barbaros Hayreddin assisted in the repelling of advance of the 2nd Brigade of the Bulgarian 1st Infantry Division. On the 30th of March, the left wing of the Ottoman line turned to pursue the retreating Bulgarians. Their advance was supported by both field artillery and the heavy guns of Turgut Reis and the other warships positioned off the coast. The assault gained the Ottomans about 1,500 meters by nightfall. In response, the Bulgarians brought the 1st Brigade to the front, which beat the Ottoman advance back to its starting position. World War I. In the summer of 1914, when World War I broke out in Europe, the Ottomans initially remained neutral. In early November, the actions of the German battlecruiser SMS Weissenburg, which had been transferred to the Ottoman Navy and renamed Yavuz Sultan Selim, resulted in declarations of war by Russia, France, and Great Britain. Between 1914 and 15, some of Turgot Reis's guns were removed and employed as coastal guns to shore up the defences protecting the Dardanelles. On the 19th of January 1918, Javus and the light cruiser SMS Breslau, which had also been transferred to Ottoman service under the name Midilli, sailed from the Dardanelles to attack several British monitors stationed outside. The ships quickly sank HMS Raglan and HMS M28 before turning back to the safety of the Dardanelles. While en route, Midilli struck 5 mines and sank, while Yavuz hit 3 mines and began to list to port. The ship's captain gave an incorrect order to the helmsman, which caused the ship to run aground. Yavuz remained there for almost a week, until Turgot Reis arrived on the scene on the 25th of January. The old battleship took Yavuz under tow and managed to free her from the sandbank by that afternoon. Turgot Reis was removed from active service after the end of World War I. By 1924, the ship was transferred to the role of a training ship. At the time, she retained only 2 of her originally 6 28cm guns. Turgot Reis was converted into a Vulcan stationed in the Dardanelles until 1938. She remained afloat until she was finally broken up for scrap. Between 1956–57,